Yo, yo, yo! Welcome to a very special 100th episode of Throwback Hoops. I'm your host today, Lala, and I'm joined by my throwback OGs, Woody V, and the man who shoots it deep from the three, Robbie C. How you doing, my guys?
What's up, Lala?
All right, so we've got a really fun-filled episode today. We're going to crack through, run through some of the great moments that we've had in the last 99 episodes. And we're also going to crack open a classic pack of cards at the end, Woody's favorite. I'm sure he's excited for that. But before we get right into it, be sure to subscribe and follow wherever you listen to the podcast. So if that's on YouTube or Spotify, follow and keep up with the latest updates. So in spirit of the podcast and its name, Throwback Hoops, we're going to talk about the throwbacks we're rocking. So, Woods, who you got there today, my guy?
I'm going to stand up. I need to take the audience through it, Lala.
Yeah. Who we got? We got Atlanta 15. And it's a VC jersey. Yeah, boy. And the shorts and the hat.
Wow.
Yeah, so thanks, Lala. So I just thought that, this is one jersey I've wanted to wear for 100 episodes, but I haven't found the opportune time. I thought I'd save it for the special episode. Let me just take you through a little bit about Vince Carter. He was the 5th overall pick in the 1998 NBA draft, had a career that spanned, over 20 years. He played in 3 separate decades, right? The 90s, the noughties, and the 10s, and the 20s, actually, the early 20s as well, Robbie, right? Yep. So he's with Toronto, New Jersey, Orlando, Phoenix, Dallas, Memphis, Sacramento, and finished off with our Atlanta Hawks, 8-time NBA All-Star, All-NBA second teamer, All-NBA third teamer, NBA Rookie of the Year, NBA All-Rookie first team, the Slam Dunk contest champion in 2000, McDonald's All-American, represented the country. He was a cultural icon. What Vince Carter did for the game of basketball transcends the sport. What are your thoughts and memories of Vince Carter? Maybe I'll throw to you first, Lala.
Man, that dunk contest is like, it gives me chills, like thinking about it and watching it, right? Those dunks were amazing. And not even just the athleticism he shows, it's the way the build-up happens. Like, no one has done a dunk comp as well, like as a showman as he has, right? And just that, and just the breadth of his, the stats don't speak to what he actually did for the NBA, for Canada, for Toronto, for putting them on the map. Like, he's, as you said, a cultural icon, and like that, I think, goes well beyond the game, the sport, just everything. VC is one of my, I would say, up there, top 3. I would say for me, Vince Carter, for sure.
Well, that dunk contest was extremely famous, and we'll talk about Leigh Ellis a bit later today. When we on the show, he's like, what made the dunk contest so marketable in those 80s and 90s periods was the fact that the big guys, the Jordans, the Dominiques, the Vince Carters, the Sean Kemps, those guys all used to participate in the dunk contest. Now it's hard to find, these, top level players willing to partake in it. So that was really great. Another thing, Robbie, we talk about players who struggle to, adapt their game as they get a bit older and have that longevity in their careers. We think about a guy like Allen Iverson that wasn't willing to take a lesser role. A guy like Vince Carter really transformed his game towards his career, became a knockdown shooter, a veteran in the locker room, and a big part of why his career lasted so long was his ability to be able to adapt, correct?
No, for sure. Look, I was going to mention the longevity as well. You mentioned playing across 3 separate decades is amazing. Right, he managed to
4 decades. 90s, noughties, 10s,
yeah, 100%. Yeah, stand corrected. Yeah, and yeah, like you said, sort of being that locker room presence, he really turned into a decent 3-point shooter. He's a bit of he'd sit in the corner and shoot those threes at the end. I know everyone at his time at the Hawks loved him. He had a pretty big influence on Trey on those few years, and that became a bit of a assistant coach as a player type thing there. And such a knowledgeable player. I think it's true what Lala said as well. He really put basketball in Canada on the map. With his time at the Raptors there. Someone I remember very fondly as well.
Yeah, towards the end there, he did quite well, didn't he? Like he didn't fade as badly as you would think someone who's played in four separate decades. A guy, he did not fade at all. His skill was still there. He adapted, as you say, shooting that three really well in the Atlanta at the end there. It was really sad that it was very quiet.
Surely the best in-game dunker as well, right? I mean, I'm wearing what I think is probably the second best, but for me, he'd be the best in-game dunker. Sean Kemp's probably up there.
Sean Kemp's up there.
But yeah, I mean, it's fitting that we're both wearing some high-flying players on our jerseys today. But yeah, no, I like that one, Woods.
Oh, yeah, I was mentioning as well, he stayed involved in the game as an analyst in various different aspects. So it's great to see some of these legends of the game staying involved post their playing.
Yeah, nice. So Robbie, who you got here today?
Thanks, Lala. So, look, I've already sort of featured and spoken about these guys probably at a bit of length on previous episodes there, but I guess just a quick recap. So, hanging over my shoulder, it's one of my very first jerseys, my Ricky Grace jersey. Really love that one there. You don't find many jerseys like that, do you, Woods, in that sort of condition and everything. I really looked after that one. Clearly, way too small for me now, but Ricky Amazing Grace, a guy that, was one of the Wildcats all-time greats, played for the Boomers, had a couple of 10-day contracts with the Atlanta Hawks. So, along with Andrew Gaze, they're definitely my favourite ever NBL players, and Andrew Parkinson as a close third. And look, everyone knows for Dominique, I mean, my love for the Hawks started, I'm going to say, I think it was 84 or 85. I was around sort of 6 or 7 at the time, so probably not going to find someone that's gone for the Hawks as long as me. A lot of tough times there, still waiting for that first championship, but I'll always stay loyal and true to them. And yeah, Dominique's just, in terms of having an idol when you're a kid, he was my idol there. It's still so great to watch the Hawks games, and I watch every Hawks game now, and Dominique's one of the commentators there. That's pretty special, sort of hearing him chat there. And got a lot of Dominique memorabilia around the house, as I'm sure you guys have seen there. But I'll just stand up and show you this old school Dominique one. I know you like this one, Woods, because I think you had this jersey on your wedding cake, was it, I think, or something?
Yeah. I still got the same jersey. So Robbie's wearing the old school Dominique Wilkins 21 Hawks jersey. That's the Adidas one, yeah? No, Reebok.
No, this is a Reebok one. Woods, I'm sure I've told you that story, right? So back in the day, it was pretty hard to find out NBA news. So my brother and I used to stay up and watch Sports Tonight. So every night it would be on around 11 o'clock. Tim Webster would usually host it. He pretty much coughed his way through the whole episode because he was a chain smoker there. And he basically mentioned at the end of this episode, we just started to see some scores, right? And he basically mentioned, and in NBA news, Atlanta Hawks superstar Dominique Wilkins has been traded to the LA Clippers for Danny Manning. I'm not going to lie. I think I was 11 or 12 at the time. I stormed out of the room. I was in massive anger. And then pretty much a minute after that, the tears started flowing. And I'll never forget that moment. I also will never, ever like Danny Manning, as those regular watchers of the show will remember that, but I'll never remember that moment. I think it was a Friday night when they broke the news there, and I was heartbroken. I've probably still never forgiven the Hawks for that, to be honest. I just don't know why they did that, especially for a hack like Danny Manning. But that's a little story about Dominique as well. But looking forward to see his statue in around 3 months' time when we make the trek to Atlanta. So that's going to be a special occasion. I might even wear this jersey there and get a photo in front of the statue. So look out for those on socials next week.
Should.
Yeah.
And Lala, I might as well also mention that me and Robbie are in a unique situation where Ricky Grace, Josh Childress, two of our favorite players representing our local franchises, the Perth Wildcats and Sydney Kings, also played for our NBA franchise, the Atlanta Hawks. So that's pretty cool that you think that has happened, that these guys have crossed over both the NBL and the NBA with our favorite franchises. So that's pretty cool.
That's very cool. It's very cool. And for me today, I'm rocking a Atlanta Hawks Spud Webb jersey, number 4. I've had this on the show before, and I'm wearing it today because this is our 100th episode. The logo is a hawk. It's all about the Hawks, so I'm here representing that. And in the back, you guys have spoken about him before, but I've got the glove, Gary Payton in the background, a gold edition jersey over there. It's quite nice. I quite like it. I haven't really worn it. The gold's a bit hard to wear. But it is a nice jersey.
Hey, Lala, would you say your style in our Thursday night comp is a little bit Gary Payton-like? I call you the defensive player of the year for a reason, right? DPOY.
That's it, man. I try and lock down on defense. I mean,
nice. I like it.
My jumper's not helping me, so I need to do something somewhere. So that's the part of the floor I'm helping
doesn't talk as much. Definitely doesn't talk as much.
No, luckily.
Yeah. I don't have the game, the talking game as he used to. So, I wish I had his hops, mind you, but that's
thick jersey though, man.
Yeah, man. I like these two. So yeah, that's our jerseys. They're looking good today. So I guess we'll jump off into the next part. I guess we're going to talk through some of our favorite moments in the past 99 episodes. There's been so many guests and so many good moments through the what is it? It's been over a year and a half, maybe 2 years.
Maybe I'll just have a quick interjection before we go to that bit, Lala. So, look, I think it was around September 2021 we started. So it's well over 2 years now. It was right around that COVID time. So just a little bit of backstory on it there. Woods and I have been talking about doing something like this for years. You know, we'd chat all the time and message all the time. It's about stuff happening in the basketball world. And we always thought, you know, we're big podcasters. We'd love to do something like that ourselves. And I think I'm right, Woods. We kind of talked about it, but nothing ever eventuated. I think the COVID thing kind of, we just decided we'd give it a go, right? And look, I'm just so glad we actually did do this. I know we'll talk about it a little bit later, but it's really allowed us to make some great friends and connections with people that share our similar interests and love of the sport and the culture there. So, it's been a great thing for me personally. I really look forward to doing this every week. That's just a little bit of a backstory about how we get started. Looking forward to the next 100 as well, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, COVID was a blessing for a lot of people because it gave you time to do things that you might not have done otherwise. So having that gap in our lives and needing to focus on something really kickstarted this. And I'm really glad that it eventuated, because when we started this, if you told me we'd get to 100 episodes in 2 years, I would have thought, no way, man, that's not going to happen. I have thousands of subscribers listening to our show. And this doesn't happen without our followers, our audience, the people who support us every day, the people who help us with the show, Lala, so thanks to everyone who's contributed anything over the last couple of years.
And I think the people you've brought in and the subscribers are all reflections on how good of a job you guys are doing. So hats off to you blokes for doing this, turning your passion into something. And this is a labor of love for both of you. So hats off, guys. You guys have done amazing to get to 100. When you guys first started, I wasn't even thinking of 100. I'm not sure how you guys. I know you guys were probably projecting, sure, but 100 episodes and the guests you guys have had, amazing.
Hey, Lala, I watched back an old episode the other day, and for starters, my camera was bad and everything else like that, and I could tell how nervous I was just watching that back. I think I might have said absolutely about 25 times on the podcast, and just little things like that. So I guess you iron out these things and you get more comfortable and everything like that.
Yeah,
I really appreciate the words of that. That's it.
Yeah, amazing. So hats off, guys. You guys have done amazing. So I guess shall we roll on to the next part of the show?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Yeah. So look, we're gonna just run through some favorite moments. I guess I'll start with you, Woody. Let's talk about your favorite.
Look, I'd like to talk about Michelle Timms, right? FIBA Hall of Famer. I just heard on the broadcast yesterday, I don't know if you did, Robbie, that both Michelle Timms and Andrew Gaze being nominated for the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame, the greatest honor in basketball, and Penny Taylor.
Yeah.
So you think about that, two Australians who are going to be possibly inducted into the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame have been guests on this show. And you talk about cultural icons, Michelle Timms was that. I remember her speaking about how even men and young boys used to look up to her in that late 80s period. She was the first Australian to get a contract play in an overseas league, men or women included, right? So the kind of impact she's had on Australian basketball has been enormous. And just to say that she's someone we know and have been able to chop it up with her on our program. And that was in the early days, Robbie. I think it was one of the first 10 episodes, if I'm not mistaken, right? So, what are your thoughts, man? What are your memories of Timsy?
I mean, it was great to talk with her. Definitely I was nervous for that one there. She made us feel really comfortable, didn't she? I know she had a few little internet problems at first when I think she was having to go outside and the dogs were barking and stuff like that. But she really enjoyed the trip down memory lane, didn't she? And you're right, hearing some of those stories, you're absolutely right. I think it was the 80s that she became that first
Yep.
Australian player getting overseas, yeah. So that was just amazing, sort of hearing about that. And just some of her stories about playing in Phoenix. I mean, I seem to remember I wore a Dan Marley jersey that episode, Phoenix Suns star there. And, you know, she talked about her relationship with Dan and eating at his steakhouse in Phoenix and those sort of things. But, no, that was great sort of, you know. I mean, look, I know Lauren Jackson's considered the GOAT there, but I think Michelle Timms is probably, you know, very much just a close second to her, along with Penny Taylor, of course. But, you know, what she did in the WNBL, WNBA, and then, of course, overseas. And she talked about that All-Star game as well, right, Woods? That was pretty cool hearing about that. I think it was in New York, from memory.
No, MSG, yeah, definitely. It was in MSG, and then Cubby came up and shook her hand, and man, right. I love your game, right? And then she played that with Steve Nash, that celebrity game, which was great. One thing that stands out for me, they said, Lala, I'll throw to you here, is she's like, listen, Americans, they like their sport, they like loud music, they like to celebrate, have fun, and at the end of every game when we'd be winning, all the girls would be like dancing and like pushing each other around. And she's like, I'm so white. I hate dancing. I don't do any of that stuff, right? But when we won game one of the first NBA finals, WNBA finals in 1996, I jumped up onto the scorer's table with the flag. I'm dancing, I'm waving the flag. And she talked about how much it meant to her to have that opportunity. And you know, there was only, I'll tell you something, there was only 16 players in the world that got nominated as the marquee players for the inaugural WNBA season, right? So each team could have 2 players that were their marquee players, right? And 16 players in the world were nominated, right? And at that point, Michelle Timms was considered the greatest point guard on earth. And she was one of the 16 that was nominated as a marquee player. So what she's achieved on the international stage and overseas, all the Olympics, she talked about that heartbreak of 1988, not qualifying for 1992, and then coming back and winning that bronze medal in 96, becoming the first medalist, first Australian men or women's team to win a medal, right? Mm-hmm. About having her and chopping it up with us, telling us all these stories on the show, and as Robbie said, she seemed really happy going back down memory lane, and some of those stories are timeless. You know, it's the kind of episode you can go back and listen to whenever, and if you haven't listened to it before, it'll still be interesting for you. So definitely stands out for me. Yeah,
the same for me. Definitely that episode. When I heard you guys had got her, I was amazed, because that she's, as you say, she was an icon. She was someone I looked up to even as a young boy, you know. Like Michelle Timms holds a very, very special place in my heart. So I was so rapt to hear her. And her stories were, she's such a great person, such a normal person, easy to chop it up with. And all those stories were amazing.
Yeah, you talk about cultural icons like Allen Iverson with the cornrows and whatnot, right? You had Michelle Timms, diminutive little point guard with the peroxided blonde hair and stuff, you know, a cultural icon for us in terms of basketball. So she was just so great with her time, such a lovely human.
Hey, Woods as well. I think she inspired so many, Australian, you know, girls and boys across the time.
And boys.
More so girls. But I think people could relate to her a bit more. And you see someone like Lauren Jackson, she's, you know, 6'5", she's a giant sort of thing. Michelle Timms is, I don't know what she's listed at, 5'7", maybe, something like that. I think people could relate to her a little bit more, right? So people, you know, were sort of seeing what she could do on the basketball court, you know, playing against a game against a lot of tall people and that, seeing what she could produce, and it inspired them to sort of pick up the game. So I think she's had that real legacy on, you know, certainly on Australian basketball with getting people involved in the game.
Definitely. I agree.
And just before we finish up, one final thing I wanted to mention is that 96 win, right? When they won that first ever medal, she said, I know how Patty Mills felt, with, you know, and him and Joe Ingles won that gold, bronze medal recently, right, at the Olympics. They did it for all those that came before them and didn't have that opportunity to do it. So in 96, we were doing the same thing for everyone that came before us, right? So for her to make that comp between their 96 win and the Boomers as well was very apt. And yeah, I mean, both those victories will go down in Australian basketball folklore. So, yeah.
That's true. Great. Now that was amazing. It was great having her on. And Robbie, we mentioned his name earlier, but who was your favorite moment?
Well, kind of from one goat to another, right? So I wanted to talk about the time we had Andrew Gaze on the show. So it was episode 16 back in January 2022. So it's, you know, nearly 2 years ago now. I've got to say, when Woods and I started, I think we wrote a little bit of a list of, you know, who we'd who we'd get on the show, and then kind of a second list of who we'd just love to have on the show. And we've still got some names on that now. I think I've got Dominique on that list. He hasn't replied to me yet, but maybe one day. But one of the ones that we said we'd just love to hand Andrew Gaze. He was someone that Woody and I just looked up to so much. Someone that never played for the teams that Woods and I went for, yet we still he's probably in our top 3 favourite players of all time in the NBL. So when I reached out to Andrew Gaze and then got this email back from him, it was just a special moment. And that was probably the most nervous I've been, I think, organising and getting a podcast started there. If you remember rightly, Woods, it didn't totally go to plan this episode. So
No.
I remember I was off work at the time, so I think it was a Friday we were recording, right? And let's say we had it booked for 3 o'clock, right? So Woods was working at the time. We both logged on at 3 o'clock, and I may have told this story again, but I'll briefly tell it again. Got to 3:05, 3:10, 3:20. He still didn't turn up, and we're like, "Oh man, I think he stood us up here." That's what's going on. It's really disappointing. I was so nervous and sort of focused to do it, and all that sort of adrenaline just started going down. I had everything set up, all the notes ready and stuff. So I think at 3:30 we called it, right? Woods is like, "I've got to get back to work here. Let me know if he does show up or if you hear back from him." Right? So I sent him an email at the time. What I did, because I didn't have to go back to work, I actually left the recording running, right? So I went into the next room and was reading some of Boddy Nodge's book, of all things, right? So shout out to Boddy. We're a big fan of his. He's also been on one of our earlier episodes. And so I was in the room next door and I could kind of hear a bit of noise, right? Didn't think anything of it. And then I sort of heard someone yelling out, "Hello," in a voice like that. I'm like, "What is that?" Like that. Walked back in and Andrew Gaze is kind of like looking on the camera. So he's basically on there. I'm like, "Oh my God, he's here." So I said, "1 second, Andrew." I went and rang Woods. I'm like, "Drop everything. He's on the podcast. Let's go," like that. I think this is about 4 o'clock. So it's about an hour after we'd sort of planned there.
Yeah.
So I always remember that. And it was funny. I went from being really nervous when we started, I had that quick chat with him and you could see he was just the big grin that we always see from him. He was really up for it and that. And it made me loose and relaxed. And I think it probably made us, ask him better questions there. But in terms of, what we talked about on that show, I mean, I definitely recommend people listen to it. I played it back this week and it put a smile on my face. We went for nearly 90 minutes there. And that's 90 minutes with, Australia's greatest ever basketballer, someone that, as Woody said, is going to, likely get named in the Naismith, Hall of Fame for world players, later this year. So, look, so many things to talk about that he spoke about then. For me, it was probably just hearing some of those old players and old names and just hearing how enthusiastic he was. Thought he was a real good historian, Woods. He had a real good memory and recollection of things. We were bringing up old players and you could tell he was kind of impressed with that and everything. But hearing some of those stories, I rocked a Sean Elliott San Antonio Spurs jersey that episode. His face lit up when he saw that one. He told some great stories. And remember, Woods, he said how much of a great guy Sean Elliott was and that he loved playing with him there. I'll tell a couple other stories. One that I really liked, you can probably see hanging behind me that way is the old signed Andrew Gaze shoe. He was really up on seeing that. He was really excited about that. Had a few laughs because I told him a lot of people have said to me, "That's great, but where's the second shoe?" So he actually told me that would have been a game-worn shoe as well. So that was really nice knowing that one behind me. Is it a shoe that would have been worn in an NBL game or a Boomers game, whatever it might have been there. So, look, I'll tell a few other stories. Just how humble Andrew Gaze was, and maybe I'll throw that to you, Woods. That really came across, doesn't it? I think you sort of see that side of him. He's a jovial sort of guy. He's he can laugh at himself. He doesn't have that ego and stuff, but it really came across in the podcast. What were your memories on that one, Woods?
Yeah, so Leigh Ellis said that when we had him on the show, that his experience with Gaze is like you can pay him out, you can have a joke about him, take the piss out of him a little bit. And he's just one of the boys, man. He doesn't consider himself on a higher level or anything, despite him being an absolute legend of the game, right? And he made us feel comfortable in such a quick amount of time that it just flowed so well, the podcast. He was so open with sharing his stories and his time. In fact, we didn't want to go as long as it did, but we couldn't put a good man down because he just wanted to keep talking. So I just think that his humility and he's just a great human being. So yeah.
And when I was playing that one backwards, I think I might have said to him, "Oh, we'll have to have you back on for a part 2." And he's like, "Yeah, for sure." So look, maybe I'll reach out to him. It's been, nearly 2 years since we had him on. We could get him back on for a part 2 and, talk about some of those things. I know we talked about the Boomers bronze medal win, everything like that. One thing, and I know, Lala, you like this one as well. We mentioned to him earlier in the show that we were going to be doing classic packs, right? And you could see his mind sort of ticking like that. And his exact words were, "Is this a stitch up?" And I think Woods and I both, what does he mean by that? And then Drew went on to tell the story about when he was playing for Washington there. think it was a late game in the season there. They played against Golden State. And sort of little-known player Byron Houston threw a massive dunk down on Gaze. It was, as I said at the time, it was Houston's only points in the game. Gaze actually outscored him, but it was a massive dunk, and it just so happened that Upper Deck, when they made their cards for the next season, featured that dunk there, of all things there. So Gaze, he told the story about, if you see him on there, they've actually taken his name off the back of the jersey. I don't know what that was all about. Yeah. Maybe he wasn't a current NBA player, but I know you looked that one up, Lala. What were your thoughts on that story that he told there?
Straight away, upon hearing that, I looked that up, and very, very not wasn't the easiest thing to find, was it? It was very hard to find because Byron Houston's not a well-known player either.
Yeah.
But that dunk was pretty massive, and you could just see Gaze like
And do you remember he couldn't remember his name either? So I had the box score open of that game, and I'm reading his plays. He's like, no, not Byron Houston. He's like, that's it. That's the one. He got so excited. Exactly, it was, right? Because he only scored 2 points for the game, and it was great sort of hearing that story. But he generally thought maybe that was a stitch-up that we were planning on showing that card at the end. We didn't have the Upper Deck cards, and we didn't pull that one. But no, that was a great story. And probably some other ones, as much as it was Melbourne winning against my beloved Wildcats there. But talking about what that first NBL Grand Final meant to him, and he mentioned it probably, and later on in life it meant more, because he had that final win with his dad, and being a father of his own later in life, and knowing what that sort of would have meant to his dad and everything else like that. But I guess I still pinch myself personally that we had Andrew Gaze on the podcast. I mentioned to you guys before we were recording, look, I know this is a bit of an episode that it's going to, we're not really going to talk about current stuff, but it's Christmas Eve as we speak here. So we watched the game last night, and the three commentators were Andrew Gaze, Liam Santamaria, and Jack Hebron. So three guys that we've had on the podcast, and, Jack and Liam especially are guys that I've sort of kept in touch with as well. So that's pretty special to see that. But any maybe final thoughts from yourself, Woods, how special it was to have Andrew Gaze on there, and what that sort of meant to you?
It meant a lot to me, especially considering you think Leonard Cope and Gaze were heroes of mine and my brothers. In the backyard, we try to emulate them. For me, they were like idols of mine. And to actually be able to meet him in person and do this face-to-face with him was awesome. And for him to even tell stories about how that friendship between him and Leonard Copeland has lasted the test of time over 30 years. They're in the commentary box together. They play golf every week. Just amazing, because those two guys, you could just tell back in the day that, they were tight as, and just watching them play was amazing. So, and that he's kept those friendships with the Mark Bradkeys of the world, etc. Right? So a lot of that stuff just was nostalgic to hear, from him. So
we talked about all those current players' dads that he played with as well, Wood. So whether it was, Bruce Bolden, rest in peace, Cecil Exum, Dave Simmons, all these sort of guys now, whose kids have sort of made it in the NBA, made it on the world stage, was great to hear. But you mentioned Leonard Copeland Woods. Maybe that's a name we'll get on in these next 100 episodes. Maybe watch this space, right?
For sure.
Yeah.
Great idea. No, that was, that podcast with Andrew Gaze, you can just tell he's full of stories. He's so humble, so humble, and just like one of the boys. And there's such amazing stories he had to share. So that was really good. And I do urge all the listeners to go back and listen to that again. It's a really good listen. That was Gazy. So I know we probably have another favorite memory, personal favorite of mine as well. Actually,
what's yours, Lars? What's yours?
Leigh Ellis from the No Dunks podcast is a definite top three for the Throwbacks guest list. He's just, again, humble, one of the boys. Probably a main reason why I listen to the No Dunks podcast as well. Having an Aussie on there, almost an ambassador for us in a way on that podcast, was always a lean into why I wanted to listen to it. So that was very cool. So when you guys got him on, that was a very, very, very cool moment for you. So I guess, Woody, you got some stories to talk about that?
Yeah, I think the best thing to say is you mentioned that you wanted to listen to him because he's Australian. He was representing us, right? When we had Leigh Ellis on the show, Robbie even said to him, look, man, a big part of why we're doing what we're doing is because you inspired us to do this, right? Listening to you on the starters and the Basketball Jones, No Dunks, etc. really gave motivation. Hey, there's another Australian voice doing this, right? We can do this too. And then he responded, I don't know if you remember this, Robbie, with something along the lines of, I honestly did As soon as I got involved with the starters and I was on NBA TV, I felt, look, I'm not just representing myself, I'm representing all those fans out there in Australia that love the game of basketball. So the kind of impact he has had, you talk about Michelle Timms, making, little girls believe that they could make it, a small, 5'7" girl wanting to make it to the pros. Well, a guy like Leigh Ellis also, gave hope to us guys here in Australia working in the media and things like that, that we could make a future and do big things like Leigh Ellis. So that stands out to me.
Totally true. Same for me, Woods. It was definitely someone, hearing someone that talk like us. I know you talk in an American accent occasionally, Woods, but no, hearing someone with that full Aussie accent that sounded like me and everything like that was just, amazing to hear him. Again, such a humble guy and a great guest. I'm actually still in contact with him a little bit. We mentioned that trip we're going to. We've actually got Leigh Ellis a ticket for one of the games we're going to. So he's likely to come. He said he's still doing his overseas tours at the moment. He should be back then. So Leigh's going to come and kick it with us at a game. I think it's Atlanta versus Portland, which is going to be amazing. We'll get a nice photo there and everything like that. But it's been great sort of following his journey, and hats off to him as well for, he had that comfort of doing this podcast, and that was his daily gig, and now he's kind of got out of his comfort circle there, and he's traveling overseas and playing basketball in places that you never even knew they played basketball. But he did love it. I think he said, what did he say at the end, Woods? He said, anytime someone gets me on a podcast and wants to talk about old hoops and open a pack of cards, he's always down for that, right? He gave me a pretty good run for my money on the classic packs as well. I'm going to call it a draw, actually, I think, as well. But
I'll tell you guys something. The name of our show is Throwback Hoops, simply because we're nostalgic. We like to look back on those fond times, and the late '80s, the early '90s. That period of time that basketball was huge in Australia. Not that it isn't back to those lofty heights now, but in the 90s it really broke out. The NBL was huge. Gaze, Copeland, the NBA was coming to the fore. Michael Jordan, etc. Leigh Ellis mentioned this. Leigh Ellis likes to look back on those memories, those fond times, right? He's a throwback himself. He loves those classic packs. He loves talking about the All-Star game he talked about, the Tom Chambers All-Star game, right? I think it was. Confidence, baby, confidence.
The Rolando Blackman, yeah.
Yeah, and we talked about how Vince Carter participating in the dunk contest, and now you don't have those stars. Leigh Ellis also mentioned back then how much the All-Star game meant to people. I think Moses Malone was going up for a layup and 4 guys came by to take him down. I think he mentioned a story about that, how much the game meant then. So it was nice to hear that insight from him, seeing what the All-Star game was, the dunk contest was back then, right, compared to where we are now. So, yeah.
Hey, Woods, you even managed to have a chat about cricket with him as well, right? So, I did. Of all things there, and I had to come on, guys, we don't have time for cricket. Episode 62, this one was as well. So this was February this year. So, all the ones we've spoken about today, I think you could really go back, and they're pretty timeless episodes. We're talking about more their careers and different things that have happened in their lives. We're not particularly talking about, current things that happened that week in the NBL or NBA, but definitely recommend people to go back and listen to that one.
And the opportunity that he just got a small window where would leave alone the guys at the score, the basketball Jones guy just kept ducking his head in, saying, I know about basketball too, until that lockout came and they finally gave him the opportunity to go on that tour with him. And he just told his boss, look, I don't care if you fire me, I don't have a job after I come back from the trip. I'm taking this opportunity to go on this trip right now because it could open up doors for me. And it did. And just to hear that story about how that eventuated, the friendship that these guys built over such a long period of time, it was heartwarming, man, and really, really inspirational.
I think out of all the guests we had, this was someone that we felt like we knew, even though we didn't. You know what I mean? Just because we had listened to him for so many years. I think I said to him on the show, we knew your wife's name and your kids' names and all those sort of things because we've heard you so many times. It was like having a friend that we'd never met. And it's great that we've sort of made that connection now. And look, he's someone that I could almost say we will definitely get back on the show at some time there. We'll get him back on and chop it up with him for sure.
And I'll be honest with you, sometimes you host a show, sometimes I host a show, sometimes I finish and I go, I could have done a little bit better. I think I could have done this bit this way or that way. And I'm very critical of myself. When I finished that Leigh Ellis episode, I thought, hey man, this just was so easy because I felt like I knew him. It was so easy. Everything just flowed on. And I was really happy with the work we did on that show as well, right? Because being who he was made our life a lot easier. So, yeah.
Yeah, amazing. Fellow podcaster and inspiration. So I think it's really nice when he came on. So, yeah, definitely listeners go back and have a listen to that one. So it's a great one. And I know you guys have also, made a lot of other good friends while recording the podcast. Maybe speak to us about that a little bit more.
Well, let's talk about the sport blokes first of all, right? Nathan Stewie have become two of our closest friends. They flew down from Perth for my 40th birthday. We're on a group chat together. The kind of bond that we've made with the sport blokes is like lifelong friendship. So shout out to the sport blokes. Jacinta, Squin, as some of you might know her, host of Shooting the Breeze, former WNBL player, become such like a sister to me, man, and Robbie, and the kind of bond that we have with her. Mookie, shout out to Mookie as well. Shout out to
champion guy Mookie,
yeah, Mookie, what a legend, man. These guys are like lifelong friendships we've developed through the basketball community and social media and podcasting world. So if it wasn't for this podcast, we wouldn't have been able to, honor all those new friendships. Yeah, and then this Sydney Seeking, man, the biggest fan of the Seekings on earth, right? Living in the USA. He's going to be coming with us to Atlanta to a couple of games, I think, as well, right?
He's coming to that game that hopefully Leigh Ellis is coming to, so we can't wait to kick it with Sid there, right?
Yeah, and Sid, thanks for everything that you've sent to the show. Packs, bobbleheads.
Paddy Mills, love it.
Even a little gift for Skittles. So shout out to you, Sid, being one of our biggest fans, man. We love you, bro. Yeah.
Yeah, it's sort of going on from that as well. You're right, all these sort of lifelong connections and that. For me, I mean, obviously people know that, a part-time little gig for me is being an NBL 1 commentator for the Mighty Hills Hornets. I was so, I guess, honoured to have Liam Santamaria and Jack Hebron, who basically give me personal advice. Liam's given me his mobile number. I've chatted to him on a couple of occasions. And also Matt McQuaid. Sorry, I shouldn't forget Matt McQuaid as well.
Matty McQuaid for sure.
All three of those guys have given me some real good feedback, given me some really good tips on how to get the best out of doing this commentating role there. And, I really appreciate that there because, obviously when you start with these things, you're certainly pretty inexperienced. I feel like I've got better with each season. I'm about to, I'm preparing at the moment for the third season of doing that commentary there, which I can't wait. So, yeah, just those sort of guys, Matt McQuaid, Liam Santamaria and Jack Hebron, just for taking their time out of their busy schedules to help a nobody like me and give me some tips on how to be a decent commentator, and hopefully that's coming through. So yeah, like we said, it's really opened the doors and given us these special connections with people that we never would have connected with before this, and yeah, very grateful for this to have all happened.
Amazing. I guess let's move on to the next part of our show.
We had to do this right for the 100th episode.
Yeah, it's inspired by the last guest we just talked about, Leigh Ellis. So Woody, why don't you do your thing here for our 100th episode?
All right, so we're going to do classic packs today. And Lala, because I know you're on the show, I've only got an 8-pack today. There's only 8 in the new packets.
A new one.
It's a 21-22 NBA hoops. And let it be known, we've done the 88, 89 hoops. That's the earliest edition I think we've done. So you're talking about this particular brand of cards we've opened. This is over 30 years older than the first pack we opened. So 21-22, I know your knowledge is on point, Lal. So let's see if you can beat the master to a couple of these. Robbie? Give Lala a bit of a chance here.
I'll let him have some, yeah.
He's in bad form anyway lately.
Get off it, mate. Go back and watch those last few episodes. Killing it. Hey, just pull some Hawks. At least we know we won't get Danny Manning in this one. So that's the one good thing about a newer pack, right?
Okay, look. The Celtics have needed this guy to step up this year in a bench role and play some significant minutes. He's always had a lot of potential. Guard.
Payton Pritchard.
Yeah,
I mean, he was a great college player. I think he was from the Oregon area there. He was a really great high school and college player there. But you're right, he's really stepped up this year.
When he gets his chance, he's quite good, isn't he?
Yeah, absolutely.
The bench there. And I think when the injuries happen on the Celtics, you see him really step up, and he can shoot a good ball. Like you can see, he's quite good from deep there.
Quite popular in Boston too, right?
Yeah, it seems so.
Yeah,
I think we expected a lot more from this guy coming out of college. Cleveland Cavaliers wing, a great defender. His minutes have dwindled a little bit.
Isaac Okoro.
Yeah, Isaac Okoro.
Yeah, I mean, he's that real sort of 3-and-D type player. But yeah, I think he's going to carve out a role in the NBA, but maybe not what people were maybe hoping.
Yeah, he just needs to score more on that team or help, right? That's all it is, really. Yeah.
Okay, Lala. part owner of the Southeast Melbourne Phoenix. One of the great point guards of our generation that's been riddled with injuries, right? Really fast. This is his Houston Rockets card. Also had some time with the Clippers, and then most notably built a career at the Washington Wizards, teaming up with Bradley Beal in the backcourt. John Wall.
That's a good one to pull there. Yeah, he was recently down here, wasn't he, with his Southeast Melbourne? Yep.
He's a part owner. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
I don't know.
Yep.
Along with Josh Childress, and I think Zebo as well has some stake in the.
Right. Yeah.
Would you say his career is over now in the NBA? Or
I think when you're missing a whole season, it's going to be hard to get back. Right?
Yeah, he's saying that he's working out with teams this year and looking to come on for a playoff run. Because last year, he got let go from the Clippers? No, he got injured last year from the Clippers. Right?
He actually had some moments as well. So maybe, who knows? Maybe he will fit in with the team.
Because the Southeast Melbourne Phoenix trying to get him to come and play here potentially, but he's like, look, I'm still holding on hope that
cool.
After the All-Star here, I can get on a team for a playoff run, right? But he's still only
34?
Maybe, early 30s he'd be. All right, Robbie, I'm not even let you guess this one. Imagine if I was to pull one card, Lala, of a current player. Trae Young.
Awesome. Oh, that's great. What a card.
Yeah.
That's very cool. In great form as well, we should say.
Yeah, he's doing really well.
Maybe not. Yeah.
What is it, averaging over 30 and 10 assists over the last...
He's on that streak now. I think it's second most of all time of 30 points and 10 assists in 6 consecutive games. He passed Jordan. He's just got, I think, Oscar Robertson to pass now as well.
Yeah.
Okay, this is one of our favorite Hawks of all time.
Wow.
Initially started life with the Utah Jazz before moving to the Hawks, then the Denver Nuggets, and recently finished off his career with Brooklyn and I think Philly for a short little stint. Lala?
Number 24.
Number 20. Yeah, number 4 in this.
No, for Hawks, of course. I'll leave this one to Lala, see if we can get it. That's a guy that I love. He's probably a top 5 favorite.
Multiple-time All-Star, Lala.
Yeah.
Started off with the Utah Jazz, then moved to the Atlanta
Hawks. Not a
Hawks.
flashy player, but
Just gets the job done. Like a bit of a fundamental type player. Bit of a Tim Duncan type of
Hawks team now. How am I missing this?
Okay, he was he one of the 4 to make the All-Star team that year?
Of course, yeah, with Kyle Korver.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, he was. I've got that jersey actually somewhere. The number 4 All-Star jersey.
No, show me who it is.
Paul Millsap.
He's one of those players, Woods. I've got 2 of his Utah jerseys. I've got a Denver Nugget jersey and about, I'm going to say 4 Hawks jerseys. So yeah, he's pretty well represented in that wardrobe behind me there.
He's not signed anywhere at the moment, is he?
Nah, I think he's officially retired. Yeah,
he's officially retired.
Yeah.
Okay, this big man has always been in trade talks, but he has just stayed with the same team.
Does he love Lego?
Lego, I was about to say, he loves Lego. He loves Lego.
Yeah.
Who is it? Lala.
Yeah.
Well,
it came up on my... It actually came up on my Facebook page last night. His Lego collection is out of control, honestly. It's actually, anyone check that out if they're interested in Lego. He's got a Darth Vader type full-size Lego with his
7 foot
head on it.
It's 7 foot.
Amazing.
Yeah. Did you watch Nothing But Net yesterday with Kidman and the...
I didn't. No, I did see him dressing up at the end of that, though. Yeah, I did see a bit of that.
Yeah, so there was a segment on Miles Turner's whole collection.
Nice.
But very impressive. Okay, class of 2021 rookie class. This rookie is extremely talented, and with the Warriors really struggling at the moment, there's a lot of talk for him to get more minutes into that rotation, right? He's a knockdown shooter, brings energy off the bench.
Did Charles Barkley know who he was when he talked about him?
He's a guard. Probably not.
Talking Moses Moody, right?
Who are we talking? Moses Moody.
Yeah, so remember Charles Barkley really fumbled on his name, called him Modi Moosey or something like that. So that was quite funny. No, Shaq or Charles Barkley? Am I getting that wrong? It was one of those. Charles Barkley. It was Charles Barkley.
Okay, Lala, also part of that young core for Golden State. He's starting to prove himself on the floor. Who am I talking about? Jonathan Kuminga, exactly. Well done, Lals.
Hey, where's he from, Woods, Kuminga?
Originally. He's in the G League, right?
Isn't he West Indian descent or something like that?
Yeah, let's have a look at that one.
I thought you would have been all over that. Congo.
Congo. He's from
One of
the
his parents, right? I think I read there.
Democratic Republic of Congo.
He is showing some stuff this year. He's also wears the worst number I've ever seen that anyone can wear, 00. That's got to be the worst ever number you can wear. Surely.
All right, well, that's it. Nice pack. Really nice pack.
Hey, we got Trae Young. That wasn't a stitch-up, was it, in Andrew Gaze's words, that we got Trae Young?
Nah.
That was really good. Oh, well, we've come to the end of this 100th episode, so...
Thanks, Lala. That was
Thanks
fun.
for tuning in. Thanks for letting me host. It was a very big honor. I appreciate it. And just for all the
You did great,
listeners,
man.
again, make sure you subscribe on YouTube or follow wherever you listen to your podcast. And also Twitter or X, as it's now called, so at Throwback Hoops with an S, or Instagram, it's throwback.hoops. And of course, if you need to email us, throwbackhoopspodcast@gmail.com. And I guess I'll throw to you, Robbie, if you want to do some shout outs here.
Yeah, definitely. Look, I wanted to read through a bit of a list. Bear with me for a minute or two. I want to read out a name of all the special guests that have come on the show. Then I'm also going to introduce another little special guest who we promised would get a little appearance in this 100th episode. So I'm going to kind of go in order. So look, our first guest of the show, it was you, Lala. So thanks for that, mate. Then going down, and just a big thank you to all these people. So we had Coach Hesh, Jaden Oakley, Joseph Kaur, Boddy Nodge, Liam Santa Maria, Michelle Timms and Andrew Gaze, who we've spoken about today, Andrew Kenyon, Jacob Jacobus, Jaden Oakley, of course the sports blokes, Matt Clayton, my brother, Brad Rosen, Big Prabs, Jacinta Govind, Jackson McDonald, Matt McQuaid, PJ Terry Johnson, AJ Ogilvy, Kane Pittman, Rashad Kelly, Mookie Skirelli, who we spoke about today, Glenn Cooper, Lauren Loz Nicholson, we're going to get her back on the show for sure. Leigh Ellis, who we talked about those stories today. Brian Brownfield, Jack Heverin, Adam Ballinger, Sean Montague, Bob Turner, and the basketball blokes. So that was kind of the last guest we had on there. I'm just going to see if our little guest is ready to come on. I'm going to open the door, and I think she is. So I'm going to put the headphones on. I'm not sure. She's going to come in now. Let's have a look, right?
I want to congratulate my daddy and Woody for doing 100 great episodes. I am your number one fan.
Thanks.
buddy.
Thanks.
You gotta love that. It's a bit shy, I think, but she was rocking that Buddy Hield Pacers jersey there, so showing a love of the NBA there. So I'm glad we could do that. I know she, I think we promised her after about episode 20 was if we made it to 100, we'd get her on there. So no, that was real nice of her to do that. Shout out to Ems.
Shout out to Ems. Good job, Emma. I guess that's the end, guys. So I want to just say thanks again. As a listener, thank you for the 100 amazing episodes, and I look forward to 100 more. So peace out, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks,
Peace out.
guys.
Thanks a lot.
Look forward to the next 100.